everyone, for our very first podcast, Get Real. I'm Cindy Morrison, along with the wonderful Jack Wallace.
The wonderful Jack Wallace. I don't know about that. Good to see you, Cindy.
Good to see you as well. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about why, as real estate professionals, we want to do this podcast.
Yeah, I think that one thing that you that we hit on when we were talking about it was let's get real, and what does that mean exactly? And for me, I just feel like right now it's a good time for us all to really recenter and really focus on what's really important and what we really need to do. And so it's like that whole getting real seemed really it seemed really important to get that message out. I feel like this last few months have been really kind of a difficult time for a lot of people, both in our profession and not in our profession, with everything that's been happening with the economy and just the uncertainty. And, there's just this kind of need all of a sudden to kind of get real and, not
be yourself.
Yeah. And not
everything is perfect.
Yes. And I think that's the big stressor.
Except for us.
Of course. No, but I think that's a real big stressor. And I think, it's like, we've discussed, I've had some things that have happened in my life in the last 3 years that have been monumental and life-changing. And, I'm happy to say I'm good and I'm surviving and I'm thriving, and that's good. But it's like through that process, the healing process, one thing I've really come to realize is the things that were important to me for a long time are absolutely not important to me at all anymore, and vice versa. And so, I don't think that we're here to preach. I think in some ways we're here to remove the things that are holding everybody back, the things that are keeping you from your goals. And I think that's really what I want to talk about the most, is that it's so easy to go around and be trying so hard to impress everybody and spend money so that you look successful.
It's all the things, but all those things really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. I know, but going through COVID, and you really had to dig deep and figure out, okay, who am I? What's important to me? And I figured out it was family, friends, my dogs, and travel. Recharging my batteries. Like, those were the most important things, if I get real about it. Sure, I love a good bag or pair of shoes.
Yeah.
But that's not really what life is about.
Well, and I think it's even partially, maybe, I hate to say it, but partially maybe as part that our age. I mean, getting into our
in our 20s?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I'm in my 50s personally. No, and it's like I think there's some of that is just sort of self-leveling. You just kind of you get to look back and go, man, I survived so many things, and I've been through so many things, and we as a world have been through and continue to go through, and it's never going to stop.
Right.
The world keeps turning, and it's not going to be like what we want it to be in our fairy tale. And so instead of tap dancing as fast as you can and pretending that everything's okay, and let's be honest, that's it, it's a life or death. I mean, there's a lot of people that are suffering.
Yep.
But they're making it look like everything is awesome.
Especially Facebook and Instagram and filters and all that.
And we have to be out there. We have to be out there and putting out the houses and putting out, what we're doing. And, that's a part of your business, and keeping that in check and understanding what it is and what it isn't.
One of the things I try to do, because, I'm all about social media strategy. And while, yes, it's about branding me as a real estate professional, it's really about education. Whether you're a buyer, you're a seller, you're an investor, every single day there's going to be something there that will help educate. So it's really about the process and who's looking at the social media more than it's about me.
Well, I think for me, it's always, if it feels like I'm getting into the look at me, which I think we all have a little bit of that feeling when we do what we do, because it just seems so braggadocio. It's like, oh, look what I did, look what I did, look what I sold. But I think what we're really doing is educating people. Like, I wasn't going on in the last 3 months and saying, oh, this is a perfect time to buy a house. I really wasn't. I was saying, if this is time for you, here are some strategies. But I was not pushing that people who had a 3% interest rate should jump up and just go into it. But now, we've had enough time where people have paid down their loans. People have had time to save money. Interest rates are coming down. prices have been sort of stabilizing. So, now is a good time for a lot of people to get into the market. And so I think by showing them how the market is moving, and that's partially by saying this one sold, this one sold, this one sold, people can see, oh, wow, this is happening. Or if somebody's sitting on the bubble about selling their house, maybe they go, oh, I can maybe get it sold.
Right.
So that is, again, the education thing. And, we are promoting ourselves. I mean, and if you're a realtor out there, you need to promote yourself. That, you have to show people you're working.
Right. Well, and I think one of the reasons why this podcast was very important for us is because when you and I speak, we do get real.
Yeah, we have to.
We just sort of, bear it all. Hey, Jack, I need help with whatever it is. I just signed a builder. You've worked with the builder for 13 years.
Yeah, a long time.
So you were the first person I called to get advice. So we really want this to be a playbook for many reasons of real estate, whether you're interested in buying, selling, or investing, or also thinking about getting into real estate, or you're already a realtor and you want to just really up your game. We're going to let you know our tips, tricks, secrets, and everything
Absolutely.
else.
Or if you're a realtor and you've been killing it for years and years, and you're sort of ready to go play with the grandkids and maybe have more vacations and sort of think about those, we can go into that realm too. I think, one of the things that I think is important too is talking about life changes.
Yep.
Talk about people that are going through divorce or being widowed, those kids moving away, kids graduating from college, kids starting college, kids starting preschool. I mean, all those phases of life and all the things that you have to bring to the table and you have to be real about. It's kind of like I always say with people, it's like therapy. If you're not real from the beginning, you're not going to like the results at the end. I mean, you have to really dig in and figure out what it is that you're needing and wanting before you can, have us help you find it.
And get real doesn't really mean pulling all your skeletons out of the closet, or you're not going to wear any makeup if you like to wear makeup. It really means just being real with yourself and others. You always want to look and feel your best.
It's not a poverty mentality. We're not talking about that. And I think that the thing is, I will say it is about not going and bragging about all the things that you have, while inside you're thinking, how am I going to pay my bills? Right. I think that's where I want to get into. And I've been there. I've done that. I've lived it. And even in, probably the height of my career, we were doing that. We were living beyond our means because we knew that there was money coming in the future, or we assumed. And so we were already spending it thinking, well, we have to do this because we deserve it. That was a big one. I think that was a big one of, I've worked so hard and we've had no time. And so we deserve this. And well, that's great. But if every time it's a deserve and it's not serving your greater goal, your future, is that really the right thing? And then keeping yourself kind of almost on the need to be on the treadmill constantly because you have to keep working.
And our industry is feast or famine. I mean, I don't know anybody who's, basically gotten a salary every single month. It's sometimes you're selling homes. Sometimes, it's Christmas and everybody's busy and not moving unless they have to.
And for those of you that are looking from the outside in, I know the temptation is to think that we make so much money, right? And I'm not saying people can't make a good living, a really good living, but there's so much that goes into it. There's so much energy, time, money that you have to spend constantly to keep on your game and to keep houses marketed. And that's the thing too, we don't put key boxes on signs in the yard and then pray. We don't just do that. We have
hope is not a strategy.
It is not a strategy. Hope is a strategy for life. Hope is not a strategy for selling
business,
your house, right? And getting things marketed. So I think that's really a lot of what we want to discuss is how do you go from here to here? And the first thing you have to do is figure out where here and here are.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, taking classes, doing things that really help you, dig down deep and figure out what's important. Like for me, I have to take vacations every so often. It can be to Broken Bow, Oklahoma. It could be to Florida. I mean, it could be anywhere. but those help me recharge my batteries. So when I come back, I'm better for my clients.
Yeah. And I think you and I work similarly. I'm
Yeah.
okay working all the time and working every day until I'm not. And so
Yep.
if I don't schedule in and have sort of that timeline coming up where I go, I'm going to be leaving town at this time. I mean, it's kind of an important thing for me to have something on the books.
Yep.
So I kind of have a timeline of how much I'm going to go, because
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and you just go and go and go. And that's kind of how we are, and how our personalities. I think whether we were doing any kind of sales or any kind of business, we'd probably be the same. It's just that's the way our business works. So,
and one thing I want to say, if you are thinking about getting into real estate, a lot of people jumped in during 2020 and 2021 because homes were selling with the low interest rates. But if you want to get into real estate because you want a flexible schedule that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and to make lots of money, you're not probably going to be successful in this industry. You have to be disciplined. You have to be ready to market yourself and sell homes to help people, help them sell a home, buy a home, whatever it is. You're in it for your customer.
Service.
Yes, service.
It's definitely service. And I think that with that being said, I agree with all that, but I will say it is the most wonderful profession because you don't have to have a degree. You have to have intelligence. You don't have to have a long resume of work experience. You could have managed a household for 25 years, and those skills work really well to do what it is that we need to do. You may have worked in a completely different field, and now you just want something different. You may have gotten laid off. And I mean, I know so many people who've come to this in a different way. And so many of them that have been hugely successful because they bring to the table their uniqueness, and what is meant for them is attracted to them. And so they end up having a really great career and a really good work life because they're not trying to become something different. They're actually taking all of their experiences they've used through the years and putting it on task for real estate. So I really want to make sure everyone knows that, like, I think it's one of the best professions that you can be so successful and come from any background. I mean, a lot of my friends are in theater, and so a lot of them had degrees in entertainment or degrees in performing arts, and then they went and did that for a while and they decided they don't want to do that anymore. And so now this is a really good profession for them because they can use all that marketing themselves to now market houses.
Well, and speaking of, how people get into this industry, we're going to be giving our best advice on everything from new construction to getting a loan, down payments. I mean, you name it, we're going to talk about it. So how did you get to this point? How long have you been in real estate? Tell people a little bit about Jack.
Yeah. So originally I got my license when I was 18. Actually, my parents were in construction and the big oil bust happened in the 80s. And so they started buying rental property, and they were buying it so that their men and crews could keep working. And so that was really important to my dad. He was a really honorable man, and he couldn't just turn people away. So he thought this would be a way to get through this, downturn that happened. And at that time, HUD was holding just auctions on the weekends. They'd just auction all. There were so many houses in foreclosure, and they were just having to get rid of them. And so I got my license and worked under a friend of the family, and I would just go to the HUD auctions. And I was 18, like eating a hot dog and buying houses for my dad and mom. And my mom still has a lot of those houses to this day. I mean, it's just been an
great source of income.
Yeah, it's been an amazing thing for them. It ended up being really kind of the best thing that ever happened to them financially. And then I was at TU and I graduated with a degree in marketing. And then at that time, the world wasn't quite ready for a man like me. So I did some other things, went into design, and I did that for a long time. I worked for a man named Charles Faudré for 4 years as his assistant.
He was amazing.
He was, yeah, great education. Part of the great education was the design part, but also was the dealing with the higher end clientele and all that. And so, I mean, as a young man, that was really helpful to know how to deal with all that and what expectations were. And so that was great training. And then My partner was moving home from, he was a Broadway performer, John, and he was moving here or had moved here and was doing real estate and just getting started. And so I would go on sales calls and I would say, well, you could move this wall or you could put this over here, or we could do this. And so we would end up selling the house, and we kind of looked at each other after a few months and we're like, what are we doing? So I got my license again. And so that was, oh my gosh, 25 years ago, 23 years ago. I don't know. It's all gone so fast. And so just been doing it ever since. And, it's funny because I absolutely love this business, and I love the business part of it.
Yes.
And it's so fun to market, and it's so fun, but I love the art of the deal. I mean, the wheeling and dealing and getting people, on one page that we're nowhere near on each, that to me is so exciting to be able to go, you want to sell the house, you want to buy the house, let's calm down and
take the emotion out of it. And
And so, just kind of using, but back to my point about coming from all different things, everything that I had, my marketing degree from TU, the design background, being an entertainer myself and doing all of that really has come in and been a great thing to be able to be now where I am in the game with real estate.
Sure.
I don't think I could have been anywhere as successful as I was or as we were. I don't want to take all the credit. It was John and I that built this. Now it's me, but it was all those things coming together. So I really think it's important people know that, like, you really can do this from a lot of different places. Well, how about you?
So originally, my mom actually was an agent. She did that for a few years, but she had rental properties all of her life. She's 87 and lives just down the street from me. I just moved her from Lubbock about a year and a half ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I would watch her do that. And I thought that was just so fascinating. And went to the University of Oklahoma, graduated with radio, TV, film major, and immediately got into news. I worked in Oklahoma City, the ABC affiliate, for 8 years, then got one of the main anchor and investigative reporter positions here in Tulsa, and I was at that station for 12. The economy changed in 2008, 2009. We laid off about 30 people, and they didn't renew my contract. So I kind of took on my... Did happen.
Life happens,
and it was a big old slap in the face. But you know what? You still have to pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
I still had to make sure my kids made it to school. My husband was happy. So I ended up starting a social media business. I did some campaigns for Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, Vanity Fair. It was a great time of traveling, but I also had little kids. So that's when I thought, you know what? I'm going to follow my mom's footsteps. I'm going to get my license. And you and John actually introduced me to Cheryl Chenoweth. Yep. We are with a brokerage called Chenoweth & Cohen. And the moment I met Cheryl, and of course, knowing you and John, I was like, that's where I want to be like them. I want to work with them. So now 7 years later, I absolutely love it, and was just featured actually on a show on Hulu called First Time Buyer.
It was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And, I think it's, again, wonderful to be able to show people what we do, who we are, and why we love it.
And again, isn't that interesting that you brought TV and you brought real estate together to do? It is crazy how it all comes together, and you just, and we are the sum of our parts. It really is so true. And I think it's even true, we're talking about it as a profession. Also though, like, whenever we're talking about people, what they want in a house, that's the other thing too. Like, a diary of your life is how I describe a house. That's really kind of what your house ends up being, right? And for some people, it's, I like to travel and I don't want to mow. So you have like a no yard and a smaller house, but it's, you can turn the lock and you can leave for 2 months and be great. And some people want to live on 5 acres and don't see people, but when they want to see people, and like, what is your life? What is it you want? Where have you come from? So I think all of this is really important. And like that whole get real, like do an inventory. In the 12-step program, they talk about doing an inventory. And I think that's really amazing, is to think, what is your inventory? Like, who am I? Where have I been? And then what do I want to leave behind?
Yeah.
I think that's
as
a
you get
big
into
one.
your 50s, you begin to look at that. And it's, again, we talked about all the things, but it's more about what is the legacy I want to leave. And one of my big things is, and I did the same thing in TV news, I want to train those behind me. I love mentoring new agents because I can't do this forever. And if I can't do it forever, I want to make sure that those that come behind me do it as well or better.
It lives on.
Yeah, because your home is your safe space. And you were talking about life changes. A lot of our clients are going through life changes. They're going through a divorce and they have to downsize. They just got married or having a baby. So being a part of that and helping them find that place that they love and feel safe is wonderful.
And that's one of the secrets of real estate, is that most sales of real estate come out of need and emotional need. And so a lot of times we are the ones who have to be the calming force and at the same time getting the deal done. And I think that's one thing that it's hard when you're starting out sometimes to understand that people are in sometimes absolute panic mode from what's happening in their life. And it comes out at you a lot of the time because it's such an emotional thing to move and to sell something, even
it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, or to have to sell the house that you grew up in for your, there's all different kinds of things that people need help with. And they need a little bit of hand holding sometimes. And we have to do that. I mean, that's really part of it. I think you can't be in this business for very long if you don't have a real empathetic personality.
And an ethical mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I can't count the number of times that what was best for my client wasn't going to make me any money. And you know what? That's okay. Because I can get up and look at myself in the mirror the next day.
Right. And I think that's one thing we will talk a lot about for people that are wanting to be in the business or are in the business is, the other thing about getting real with your finances and making sure that you have money in the bank so that, honestly, you want somebody representing you who has money in the bank because you don't want them making their decisions about what they're going to do and how they're going to handle things based on they need this to happen.
Right.
It's really important that you have a professional who is doing the professional job, whatever that entails, whatever that means, instead of, oh my gosh, I've got to make this happen. Now,
right.
I would want somebody to have a little bit of hunger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I think that hunger has to come out of wanting things to be done correctly, wanting things to happen. The one thing John used to always say, and it's so true, that more deals blew up over the two-person eyes of the realtors than sometimes the problems with the house or the contract. And so it's like a really important thing to get to the place where you're also not pitting yourself against the other side all the time, or they start doing that, trying to make this all happen.
Right.
It's not like us against them, that we have to be protective of ours and they have to be protective of theirs to a degree, but I'm not going to protect mine to the detriment of yours. That's not really right either. So it's an interesting business, because also what I think is about the ethics is that you can think something is ethical, and then when you really do the math and you start really drilling down on it, you go, wow, that is not the ethical thing. So, constantly having to discuss that with each other and with your client and go, and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because do you want me to tell, for example, do you want me to tell them that we're having to sell this house because your mom is having to move into a home for skilled nursing? Or do you want that not to be talked about?
And it is up to the seller whether we can say anything or not.
Absolutely. And so at first you think, well, it's just letting people know that they love this house, but now it's, and she didn't want to move, but this is kind of where we are. So you think in your mind, oh, well, this is really letting them know this was a great house that she loved and lived in. But then again, are you giving information that they can say, oh, this is an opportunity?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, one thing we would like to do at this podcast is cover the topics that you want. If you're in the industry or you're just curious about buying, selling, and investing. So if you will message either Jack or me, our phone numbers, I think, are everywhere. Probably bathroom stall somewhere, but anyway.
Not mine. Not mine.
but please let us know what you want to hear. I know next week we're going to talk about new construction.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
which would be good. I think that's really, those are the kind of things we'll kind of do, those broad stroke things, like new construction. We'll probably talk about, even the financing like FHA and conventional. What is the difference between that and cash? How important
and
is
what's an
cash?
arm? And I'm not talking about this arm. I'm talking about
who thought arms would be back, but they are back. Yeah. No, so there's so many things. The biggest problem I think in our business, and I think it's true of every business probably, but we speak in a language that we oftentimes think other people understand, and they don't, because they just don't do it every day. It's not wrong. It's just they don't. It's kind of like somebody who's I like to think of myself as an investor, right? But somebody who really is a trader who does it as a living, they speak a language and they'll start rattling stuff off, and I'll be like, wait, no. Just explain to me whether this is a good company or a bad company, whether they're going to be around in 10 years or not. Like, I don't want to do all of the, so we have a tendency to go over people's head, and we think that we're explaining things, and people a lot of times won't ask.
Well, one of the great things about TV news is, you sometimes tackle very difficult subjects with really big words. And, you're really talking to the person who's sitting out there on their 7.5-year-old couch with, 2 kids, may not have kids, but may or may not have even finished high school. So you need to make things understandable and relatable. The other thing that I think I brought from TV news is something called with 'em. What's in it for me?
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
As a newscaster, it's not what's in it for me. I was kind of talking about my social media earlier. It's really thinking about it from the viewer perspective. What's in it for them? What do they want to know? It's not what's important to the TV news anchor. And it's the same with your social media, whether you're a real estate agent or something else. Look at what's in it for me from the viewpoint of the other person who's going to be looking at the booklets that you're putting out and the social media and the podcasts and that kind of thing.
And call us out on it, because if we're talking about something that is way over the heads of people, we're not doing our job. I mean, right. I think, you never want to dumb it down so much that people think you're talking down to them. But if you're trying to explain concepts that are not everyday conversation, you really do have to, look at that. It's sort of like in financing the debt to income, the DTI, and people will say DTI, and then I have clients look at me and say, I don't know what DTI and debt to income, instead of just saying debt to income.
Yeah,
that's we say DTI. So it's those kind of things that I think if you hear those things and you have a question, always ask. We're happy to answer that. So.
Well, hopefully you have an idea of what Get Real with Jack and Cindy is going to be about. We do want to hear from you about the topics you'd like to hear. And, we will try to be as real as possible. And we wanted to do this first one where you could just get a
and that kind of, but we will encourage that. We will encourage people, because the one thing too is I keep hearing younger people say, and I understand this, that they feel like they have been priced out of the market, and that and I understand. I see their point. I totally see their point, but I will say that the market is going to keep moving in a certain direction, and so we need to find the tools for you that we can help you to get the money that you need to get in place and decide whether or not buying or renting is the smarter option. And when buying becomes a smarter option, you can be ready. So, and honestly, instead of buying expensive things, going on expensive trips, and going out and drinking with your friends and spending like all that, when you start going into the realm of, I would like to eventually buy a house and
buy the dirt,
buy in the American dream, right? But we also don't want the American dream to become the American nightmare.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're going to talk a lot about, is that, we are we are the sellers of the American dream, but it's amazing if we don't do our job right, it can become the American nightmare, and that is not what we want. So.
And there's a lot of knowledge in our heads. For instance, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're not sure how you're going to come up with your down payment. There are grants out there. There's just a lot of information that we can cover that we really hope will help you.
And 20% down is not what everybody.
Not a thing anymore. Not a thing.
There's certain things that it's a lot less money to get in than a lot of people think, but it is money. It's right. It's real money, and getting in is just part of it. Then you got to pay the bills. So
yeah, got to be a responsible homeowner, and that does cost money.
Amen.
So Jack, why don't you wrap up for us, and we'll sign out.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, and we really do hope that this is a ongoing and long-term thing. And like Cindy said, we want to talk about what you want to hear. I mean, we can hear ourselves. We love to talk, obviously, and we like to talk to each other.
Shocking.
So, we can have conversations, but we're really not interested in it being our conversation that you listen to. We would really like to know what you want to hear. And that really is for new agents, for experienced agents who maybe just want to discuss. I mean, I want to learn from you guys too. I mean, this is not just about us. I want to learn too. So you guys can teach us just as much as we can teach you. So
we will be dropping a podcast pretty much every week, unless we're, I think on vacation or something.
In Cancun.
Yeah.
Unless we're in Cancun together.
Hey,
there you go.
Let's book our trip. Let's book our trip. Well, anyway, it's just fun for two dear friends to get together, be able to talk business and get real with you. So we look forward to joining your lives each week. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Get real.